Art is more than creativity. It is a bridge of community. It becomes kind of, instead of just me, it becomes a we situation. Hey, everybody, it's Megan Holly, and here is the next episode of Taking Flight. Today, we're talking about kind of the idea of art being a catalyst for community and building more connection. And my world is all about creativity and community, really. So, no surprise that we would be connecting these two things together and bringing that to the podcast here. And for me, I want to have a little disclaimer here, and in case somebody's sitting there going, well, I'm not really a creative per se. I'm not a creative person. I hear this all the time. People say, oh, I don't have a creative bone in my body, or, whatever those different kind of sentiments are. But here's the thing. We all create in some way, shape, or form all the time. In everything that we do, we just don't necessarily perceive it as being a creative outlet or that you are a creative person. So today we're going to talk about kind of the idea that the world of art and putting yourself into kind of a creative space or a creative thinking way can build community. And so if you're somebody who is maybe looking to have more connection with other people, then this might be the perfect thing for you to think about or consider kind of elaborating on maybe, and kind of looking at into how it can indulge into your life. So first I want to kind of talk about the idea of where I've kind of seen art and community build so much beauty in my life. When I look back just kind of as a high level look at just the world that I've lived, the kind of the plane of existence in which I've been in my entire life, there's always been a little bit of a thread of an artistic outlet, whether it was dance, whether it was a creative writing course that I've done when I was younger, going into, paint classes, or just doing things that kind of put you into those little moments of creation and stretching kind of our minds in a different way. But for me, when I really think of it, art has been such a staple in finding kind of my sense of who I am. And I think so many of us can feel lost sometimes on who we are and what we mean to this world. And then we feel disconnected sometimes too, right? And so we're going to kind of meld together the idea of art and community being something that can help us feel less lonely, less, unenthused, if you will. And how do we do that, right? So when I think to some situations for myself that have brought on such beauty in my life, in my relationships, it's always the best ones anyways, I should say. It's not always, but the best ones are when I can kind of see that there was a creative thread moving through it. And so today, I just want you to maybe think about maybe it's a past version of yourself that used to tap into things a little bit more. And maybe your creative outlet isn't something like drawing or photography or painting. Maybe it's something different. Maybe it is trying out a new class that is kind of out of your comfort zone and it just makes you feel creative. Maybe it's going to a pottery, ceramics, tutorial type of a class. Maybe, it can look any way, but how can it foster your sense of self, but then also connect you with more people? Okay. So that's kind of where our mindset is as we go in through kind of the next portions of this episode. And I hope that you, by the end of the episode, you kind of feel ignited to be like, you know what, this is kind of a spark within me that is kind of fizzled a little bit. And I do want to feel more connected and creative and within community because, well, that's the purpose of this episode, is to help us foster that a little bit more. And it's important to me that we have that because it's really, I think, a lost art, no pun intended, that we kind of come together so often with intention, especially to build our creativity and make those really cool kind of new neural pathways, for one, and for two, new conversations with the people around you. And it could be people that you already know and love, or new people that you kind of bring along the journey when you go do these things. Yeah. And so kind of the next thing I want you to embrace is something that I am really passionate about, is that the idea that art is a mirror. It's a mirror to ourselves. It helps us look at the places and points of contention within ourselves. It can help us look at where we maybe shine, because nothing's worse than going into something and feeling frustrated because it's new to you, or, it might not be your forte, right? If anybody's been to, a Pinot's palette or something like that, where you're like, yeah, right, that end painting is not going to look like the person who's instructing, and it's not supposed to, right? You're supposed to put your own little touch on it, and it's supposed to be fun, and it's supposed to be an outlet. But how about this? When you go in there and you're frustrated because you put the wrong color on the canvas, or the scale of that person's head or that flower is just not right, and immediately we have some emotions come up and we feel a certain way, and we start to see something bubble up inside of us. And when that happens, this is what I'm talking about. It's a mirror to where we are. Where is our patience level? Where is our kindness meter? Where are we open-minded versus closed-minded? These are all really important things to take in. And being one with art in some way, shape, or form can help us to see this reflection much more clearly. Yeah, because in everyday life, it just becomes kind of our mode of operation. Like, yeah, I get frustrated at the, this and that and the other, but I just move along and go on about my day. But when we can kind of like intrinsically see how quickly we go to like snap into this kind of emotion or that kind of a thing, then we can understand kind of how we operate. And not only that, we can understand ourselves in like the bigger picture, right? Outside of this mind and outside of kind of just those kind of running thoughts that are always kind of coursing through us. Like, how do we interact, and how might we be attracting or deflecting or whatnot other people because of the way we are interacting. Yeah. And I know this sounds really deep for like, okay, I went to a painting class and now I like understand how I interact with people, but honestly it can, right? Are we being kind through our frustration to ourselves and to others? Are we just writing off the whole experience and just not even letting it be fun, right? Those are kind of important things to understand about ourselves, if you ask me, because then if I find myself being closed-minded, let's say, about the experience that's literally happening in front of me, and then I leave and I'm just like all annoyed and frustrated and downtrodden, how, like, did I even allow myself to learn, grow, whatever, or even just freaking have fun? Sometimes we don't have to grow, we can just have fun. But did you allow that if you just let the annoyance of it shine through more than the other sides of it? So see, like, although it sounds deep, it is kind of the way my brain operates sometimes, because I often think we miss the mark, right? In everyday life of embracing things a little bit more and just finding the glimmers of goodness in things, And it doesn't all have to be sunshine and rainbows, but can we feel a little less kind of disconnected from what we're doing, especially when we're doing it in the moment? Can we feel less disconnected? Yes, we can. And so this is kind of what I'm imploring here. And my main kind of purpose in this life is for us to all find more joy and more happiness and more just togetherness, really. And so this is a way that we can do that. And so once we kind of understand that, we will start to see ourselves in different lights. We will see the reflection shifting, and then we can now see the bridge. So then art becomes a bridge as well. It becomes a bridge for not only, as I said, understanding ourselves better or differently, but it's a bridge to communicating it also to others, to really understand how conversations can evolve, right? Instead of surface conversation, we could have deeper connection because we just bridged and understood like the things in front of us, how we're interacting with them and what we do with that. And then we also see how it kind of trickle effects, like dominoes down the line, Yeah. Because I would be really disappointed in myself if I ruined other people's experiences because I was so hell bent on it being just so in my brain, for instance, right? Like all I did was complain and all I did was say that I suck at this and all, like all these things. And it made everybody else second guess themselves or just go into that kind of a mindset like, yeah, yeah, it's not as all it's cracked up to be, like that kind of a sentiment. And then we just like domino affected, we pulled everybody down, the collective moved into a lower vibration because we just were so kind of the wool over our eyes, just only seeing what was in front of us and not in the best light. And so this bridges our connection to so much more than just the art that we're doing or the creation or, the task at hand, if you will. It just really helps us to foster a more ignited experience when we're out in the world doing anything. We can walk through going, am I adding something to this or am I taking away, right? Addition or subtraction. We learn it very early on in life, and this is the same idea. Am I adding in or am I subtracting from the overall experience, from the energy of the room, from the way the conversation is flowing? How is that going, right? And this doesn't mean that we can't have realistic like conversations of what is happening, but I'm saying like it's a fine line of just like taking it and running it into the ground versus just being kind of seeing something for what it is and then making it into what it could be versus what you just think it is, right? In that moment, if that makes sense. Hopefully it does. Because once we bridge it, right, I believe there's so much healing. There's healing in creation. There's healing in art and creativity and all the things. And when I say the word art, it means so many things, right? It doesn't just mean sitting with a paint, with an easel and a paintbrush and, being Picasso. It doesn't mean that. Art is just anything, right, that brings us this kind of idea of creation, of something that wasn't there once and now it is, right? From taking photos to videos to all the things, everything. There's things in our everyday life that we're doing, cooking, right? We sometimes forget that that's a creative moment, a creative outlet. So if you're somebody who even just cooks dinner on the daily basis, how can you kind of bridge over that and see how you can enjoy the process more and kind of see how you're showing up in that situation, right? Are you just like there like angrily chopping your jalapenos? I don't know, right? Like just because you have to do it. It's just one more thing I've got to do versus being like, I'm nourishing my family. I'm getting a little something fun and spicy in the mix, in the meal rotation this week, right? Like how are we thinking when we're creating really is a meter of where we're at mentally. Yeah. Because I know when I'm in worse spaces or maybe my anxiety is a little bit higher, I'm thinking more just like into the mustard, right? Like just like in it and not always in a good way. And I have to check myself and go, why am I feeling this way? Why am I operating at this level? Am I exhausted? Am I this? Am I that? Like, do I need support? Like, what is it? But it's a good meter. It really is. And so if you sort of giggled through this episode, I'm with you. It's kind of, it does feel silly sometimes to look at it in this kind of a light, if you will, and in this way. But really, when we are doing things, everything from cooking to putting ourselves intentionally into maybe a creative class just for the fun of it, just for the heck of it. Maybe just do it because of this little conversation we're having. Call somebody up and be like, we're going to a pottery class because I kind of want to just stretch myself. I want to create and I want to see how I'm showing up in this and see where you are. Like see where your mental state is, see where your communication is with the people around you and just really understand kind of how you're operating. Because sometimes it's the thing that kind of knocks me back into place because I'm like, oh, okay, like, yeah, girl, you have burnt yourself out and you can see it. It's written all over you. You're operating in something that should be fun or lighthearted and you're taking it way too seriously, or you're, I'll say that, if my husband and I are doing a creative project, I can get like really like, it's got to look like this, be like this, do like this. It needs to be done by this day, not quite that serious, but like, if you're like-minded like me and you have a vision, you're a visionary. When I work on a project, especially when we're together, I can get very like, it needs to be Meanwhile, I'm missing the magic, which I'm all about, because I've allowed my mental state, my high expectations, my whatever to take over. So yeah, see how that just like practically comes into our daily life, our everyday life, and can really foster conversations within ourselves, but then also outwardly into relationships. The idea that art and creation and intentionality within it more than anything is something to help us kind of build out kind of more vulnerability. And I know for some people that might kind of go, oh, I don't want to be more vulnerable. That feels, no, thank you. No, thank you, Megan. I'm going to stop the episode here. But wait. Don't do that. Because what I mean by that is this, right? You don't have to be like full picture, all the way edge to edge vulnerable in every part of your life. But it is really a healing situation and a beautiful thing when we're allowing ourselves to bring our walls down a bit, right? When we bring our expectations down even just one notch, even a half a notch, and we can open up because we have more beautiful conversations with the people in our lives. I think that to be true because when we can find ourselves in vulnerable situations, aka maybe putting ourselves into, creative outlets more often, or, just seeing where we do create already in our everyday life and fostering it differently, we just become, and I don't even want to say a softer side of ourselves, because we don't have to, this soft girl era and all that stuff is beautiful and wonderful and all of that, but there is a time and a place for all the edges of us, right? The soft girl, the get shit done version of ourselves, all of them are valid and beautiful. It's just like where they come into play. So when I mean that kind of art and creativity and all of this brings in intentionality and vulnerability, I just mean that. I mean that we're able to kind of ebb and flow through all of it differently. And how beautiful is it that we can have things that we call more into our lives in order to see more versions of conversations come to life and see our relationships flourish differently. Yeah. Like if you're in a relationship, right? I have been with my husband. We just passed 10 years married and like something like 17 years together. Clearly I keep track of that. It's easy. If you've been in a relationship, if you've been in a business, if you've been at a job, at a career, junction for a long time, it's very easy to go on autopilot. But what if you reinvigorated your team, for instance, by doing a creative team building exercise? Yeah. It doesn't have to be necessarily in the art realm, but something that builds your creativity, builds your communication, and creates more kind of vulnerability in your relationships. Same thing if you're in a a loving relationship with somebody, whether it's friendship, it's, a sibling, it's, significant other. That one's always hard to say. What can you do to get off autopilot, What can you do? Can you play games? Can you go to a class? Like, again, what are these little ways that you can inject it? Don't just get like, oh, that's not for us. We don't do that kind of stuff. Oh, we're not creative. These things, right? But what if you just did something different to see how it went and to see what it brought up for you? At the end of the day, that's what I want this episode to be about, is the idea that autopilot is kind of the death of growth. It is also the kind of downward spiral of finding kind of just nuances in life. Like, I don't know. I don't want to be 95 and look back and be like, dude, I just kind of did the same thing over and over and over and over and over again. And that just doesn't feel fun to me. I'm a Capricorn, and I just saw this thing that it was like you crave and move towards shifts and newness and like, like just trying out different flavors, if you will. And that's very true. I also used to identify as very type A personality, like it needs to be just so. But more and more, I do believe that our personalities are not concrete. They can be very strong. They could be very intrinsic into how we operate, but they are not concrete. And I am a very attention to detail person, ATD as I call it. I want things to feel a certain way. I want my brand, like in my business and my life and my podcast and all the things, I want it to look and feel a certain way, but it doesn't have like this exactness, right? And so all that to say is like I shift and want new things. And I think all of us do, even if we're more rigid and we don't identify as this Capricorn who's chasing new things. Whoever, whatever, however you identify with the idea of shifts and changes and newness, we all do kind of come onto the other side of something different or that like shook us a little bit with a different perspective. Whether we clock it or not is a different story, but we all do. And that's what's made us like who we are to this literal moment that we are existing as you're listening to this, right? When we were two, this, that, the other happened, and we made an assumption, we made an answer, we created a kind of a snapshot in our minds of what that looked like, felt like, all that. Whether it was true reality of the situation or how we perceived it is different, but that's who made us in that moment, and then the next moment, and so forth. So all of this is to keep us kind of knowing that's how we operate as humans, whether we want to, really tap into it or not. It's there. It happens. It's happening right now as you're listening to this. You're creating an idea about me. You're creating an idea about this conversation, about what you feel about these thoughts and ideas, all of it. And then you're going to move into the next little, like, literal, like, one piece of sand version of yourself next, right? And so a little kind of tip, if you will. I don't know if I'd call it a tip necessarily, but just kind of a practicality of imploring this and like adding this into, I should say exploring. Imploring wasn't the right word, but exploring this more is to find, if you can't find what it is out there that you're looking for, ask around, right? What is calling you, to find more community and communication and creativity? Go on to really even like Facebook and go to like your neighbor or neighborhood or town or whatever group and just say, looking for something different and fun to do. Does anybody have any fun groups or classes or workshops coming up? I guarantee you would not have to work hard to find something that is different outside of your, kind of little everyday life or comfort zone that you can go, okay, that kind of intrigues me. I'm going to jump into it. Ask friends, do something different, right? Go out and seek it. It's not going to come to you. I promise you that. It's not how it works, right? Once in a while, like, little, the right ad at the right time or the right email that says, hey, we've got blah, 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 blah going on this day. Sign up, sure, that happens, but you have to like take action on it. So put yourself out there, gather a friend or two or a loved one and make a commitment. In another episode, I talk about keeping promises to yourself. Do that for this and put yourself into a space, into a community, into a new network of people and see what flourishes. See who you meet, see what you learn about yourself. Like going back to that, like, do I feel frustrated in this? Do I feel really weirdly excited about this situation? And I didn't really know that I was that excited about doing this. What are you feeling? And see how that goes. Because at the end of the day, when we do that, we start to see different things happening. Excuse me. And when we create, we invite others into our worlds differently. And when we create, we start to understand ourselves differently. And to me, that's the most beautiful thing ever. So have fun thinking about your version of creation, thinking about how you can build more community around it, whether you're building it yourself or seeking it out. And let me know how and who you find in your life and bring in creativity.